So good evening. My name is Arkasia Cox, and a little bit about me. I have been homeschooling for 24 years. I say I've been homeschooling since the beginning because my oldest is 24. She actually just turned 24 yesterday. And I have 6 children. Like I said, my oldest is 24, and then I have a 20-year-old girl, a 18-year-old son, 16-year-old son, 8-year-old girl, and 6-month-old baby boy. So it's a huge span. So I thought I was towards the end of my homeschooling journey, and then we had 2 more here in the last 8 years. So I get to start all over again. It's been a joy to homeschool, and I've really loved every moment of homeschooling. So that's a little bit about me. I'm from the Lakin, Illinois area. I've been living in Central Illinois for 24 years. Well, since me and my husband got married, we actually started living here. We're both from this area. My husband's from Bartonville, and I'm from Peoria. Also, a little known fact is my husband is the president of Peoria Area Association of Christian Homeschoolers, and that's a local regional organization for homeschool community that I'll talk about in a little bit here. Also, so welcome. If you guys have any questions, we're going to have a time for questions and answers at the end of what I have to present to you guys. We're going to just talk about a few things. One of the reasons why I decided to go ahead and create this Zoom link tonight and this get together is because I am the admin of Peoria Area Homeschool or Peoria Area Association Homeschool Facebook page. I think that's what it's called. And being the admin, I've seen that we've had a lot of new homeschoolers joining our group. And there's been lots of questions out there, and a lot of people have been fearful and just nervous and anxious. And so I wanted to kind of create a little video and do some discussion and kind of help calm everyone's fears, because homeschooling is just a great opportunity for you and your family. So we're going to talk about a few things tonight, and I'm going to kind of, if you've downloaded the document that I had posted there, as basically what I'm going to be going through and talking about. And then, like I said, at the end, we will have some discussion for questions and answers for anything that you guys want to ask me. And if I don't know the answer, I'm sure I could direct you guys to somebody that would know the answer. So first thing I want to talk about is for homeschooling. A lot of people, because we come from a public school background, we want to just do what the school does, and we don't know how to start. Basically is how I can narrow it down. And I just wanted to encourage you that the first thing that I would encourage you guys to do is to create a mission statement on why you're homeschooling and why you're choosing to homeschool, because that's going to be so important. You're going to go back to that mission often in your homeschooling journey, whether you're homeschooling 1 year, 2 years, or the entire time that your kids are in the schooling atmosphere. So it's a great thing to have as a mission statement. That may change over time because your family grows and your family changes. And so your mission statement may change on why you're homeschooling. For us, when we started homeschooling, like I said, I say 24 years ago when my daughter was born, but we officially started book work when she was in kindergarten. And we started homeschooling out of fear. That's why we started homeschooling. We were afraid of what our daughter would be subjected to in the public schools. We were concerned about bullying. We were concerned about teachers. And we really didn't like the idea of our daughter being away from us for so long during the day and only having a few precious hours with her at night. So that's why we chose originally to start homeschooling. That has changed. Like I mentioned earlier, your mission could be changing over time, and that has changed for us. We have focused more on the reason why we homeschooling is we do a family discipleship type homeschooling atmosphere. So that is important to our family, is family discipleship. And just one of the factors of family discipleship is homeschooling. So that's why we homeschool, is we want to make sure that we are training our kids according to what God wants us to do. So that's where we were, that's where we are now, and we've been enjoying it. I would definitely encourage you always want to go back to that mission statement, because it's going to encourage you. It's going to remind you of why you are doing this, because there are going to be times in your homeschooling journey that are frustrating. You're going to have challenges. And so when you look at that mission statement, it's just a nice refresher of, oh, yeah, this is why I'm homeschooling. And it's a nice reminder. There are challenges in homeschooling. And when you see those challenges, I could say some examples of challenges. Your child is frustrated with homeschooling or with a certain subject, or is not getting it. Something in that subject. Maybe your child's frustrated with division and can't get division, or maybe they're having a hard time learning how to read. There's just different challenges that come when you're homeschooling. But one of the great things about homeschooling is as you work through those challenges, the challenges are met with success, and you can see your child growing and you can see your child learning, and it's just a very rewarding experience. Number two, what can happen with homeschooling is you often are going to get pushback from others. Homeschooling is starting to become more normal. I say that in quotes because you still have those naysayers out there that just don't believe in homeschooling or don't understand why you're homeschooling. It could be friends, it could be family, it could be strangers in the store. I've actually had people approach my kids in the grocery store and quiz them about homeschooling because why are you not in school? And then that starts a whole different conversation. But the thing about when you get pushback from others is you're going to grow and your family is going to grow in those trials. And so that's another benefit with homeschooling is that you're going to see the process of your family growing through that. Something else that can be kind of challenging with homeschooling is sometimes we won't have a good support system. I know when we first started homeschooling ourselves, my family, even though we have are raised in Christian homes, both me and my husband, they were not supportive of homeschooling. They thought it was an okay thing for us to do, but they really didn't support us in the idea of why we wanted to homeschool and what that was all about. And they always kept at the back of their mind or in their side conversations about, oh, we need to enter them back into school. And it was never our plan to put our kids back into school. So you may have that lack of support. And I would just say to combat that lack of support, you guys are going to find a tremendous support system in the homeschooling community. We have a very great homeschooling community here in the Peoria area, and you're just going to find those homeschooling friends and that homeschooling support system that's going to encourage you and cheer you on along the way. So that's a nice thing that comes with homeschooling. So I just kind of talked about a few challenges with homeschooling, and then on the other end of that, with those challenges, that you're going to see some success and you're going to see some rewards with those challenges. I do want to mention here a couple of resources that has helped me personally in my homeschooling journey. And so I have those listed in that document, and I have them beside me here too. The first one I want to talk about is How Am I Smart by Kathy Cook. This is my homeschooling Bible, so to speak. This talks about, and I would encourage this for all children, whether you're homeschooling or public schooling. And and it's not specifically a homeschooling book, but she talks about the 8 ways children and people learn and what their smarts are. And it was just really opened up my eyes on how I was able to help teach my kids and their different strengths and their different weaknesses. And with the smarts that she's talking about, it's not necessarily that it's a weakness and they're never going to be successful in that area, but you can actually build that up too. So I definitely encourage it. How am I smart? The 8 smarts, it talks about, word smart, logic smart, picture smart, music smart, body smart, nature smart, people smart, and self smart. Everybody has a little bit of those, and some people have more strengths in some areas and more weaknesses in others. But it's a great book just to be able to pick up on things on how your child learns, and then you can implement that in your homeschooling journey. There's a follow-up book with that. It's called Celebrating Children's 12 Genius Qualities. This is also by Kathy Cook and a couple of other people. Definitely recommend that one too. These are very quick, easy reads. So you could probably tackle these in a couple of weeks easily. I think I read the first one, How Am I Smart, in about a week. So they're great books. A couple other ones that I want to recommend, I use as to-go resources. I don't necessarily recommend reading the whole book at one time because they are large books and there's just a lot of information in there. So if you, I just consider them a resource guide to go to when I have a few minutes on my hand, I want to read like a chapter or two, or if I'm wanting to dive in deeper in a specific aspect of homeschooling. So one of those books is The Ultimate Guide to Homeschooling by Deborah Bell. And a lot of these books you can actually get in the library too. You can request them through the library loan system, so you don't necessarily have to purchase them. And then the other one that I highly recommend that I've had pretty much my entire homeschooling journey is Educating the Wholehearted Child by Clay and Sally Clarkson. And this is a great book. It really helps solidify why you homeschool, whatever that reason is. It also helps solidify the fact that you are your child's best teacher, that you love your children, and that you want the best for your children. There's just some great encouragement in there. And like I said, these books are pretty thick, so I would definitely recommend not trying to tackle it in one setting and use them as a resource. There. The other resource I want to talk to you guys about is PAACH. We do have a regional organization. It's PAACH.org is our website. And we're just a regional organization that helps support the homeschooling community. Through that, we have a convention every year. We're getting ready to have a fall kickoff in a couple of weeks. It's September 7th. And you can register on our website for that. And that's just an opportunity to come out to Detwater Park. We have the families come out and we bring a potluck style dinner for everybody to share. And we have kickball, and it's just a really great time to get to know other homeschoolers. We do a curriculum show and tell in the spring. So if there's something like curriculum wise that's just not working for you, or you're wanting to know what else is out there, it's a great opportunity to go to that. That's a free event to go to and just to see other curriculum options out there. And then you get to talk to homeschooling moms who have used this curriculum before. So it's a really great way to just to be able to talk to people that have used this stuff without the risk of purchasing it and then not knowing what you're getting into. We have a used book sale. We also do mom nights out. We do father-son campouts. We do just several events throughout the year that we try to use to encourage the homeschooling community. And we're not just tied down to those few events. We also open it up. So if somebody has an idea they want to send our way, we're more than willing to work with things and work out on those ideas and try to come up with something to meet other homeschooling community and other homeschooling families. An idea that just popped in my head that we had before was a graduation. There was a mom who was wanting to do a homeschool graduation for her kid. And so she asked if PAACH would be willing to partner with her. And we did that. And for a couple of years, we did a homeschool graduation for the teens. So there's just things like that we do throughout the year. A lot of our support system is through our website and our Facebook page. And we just encourage people. We get questions all the time about what does the Illinois law say, or how do I homeschool, or I'm looking for this curriculum or that curriculum, or maybe I'm looking for a group and where can I find this group? So we just get lots of questions throughout the year that we try to encourage and answer to also. So I definitely encourage you to become a part of PAACH, and you can go to the website there to find out more information about that. It's www.paach.org. So moving on here, because we all have, I know when I started homeschooling, I thought, okay, it's kindergarten. You can't really mess up kindergarten. I can do kindergarten. And so that was my viewpoint in doing it. But as I got more and more into it, there was that fear of, well, what am I missing? Am I missing something? Is my daughter going to be able to learn everything that she needs to know from me? Am I going to get the right curriculum? Is she going to get good socialization? I had all those kinds of fears. So I'm hoping that through this meeting tonight, we can kind of calm some of those fears with you guys. And if not, then you can kind of open up and I can kind of share a little bit of some ideas and things like that too, to help you start your homeschooling journey. So the first thing I want to talk about is the legal aspect of homeschooling in the state of Illinois. That is one of the biggest questions that we get at PAACH from new homeschoolers is, what does the law say for homeschooling? I would say, according to the Illinois law, this is what it takes to homeschool in Illinois. And this is you be completely legal homeschooling in Illinois. And that is, you must educate in the English language You can't do it in a foreign language like Spanish or French, or you have to do it in the English language. And then you have to do all the core subjects that a student would receive in a public institution. Those are the only two requirements. For the state of Illinois, we have in a very free state when it comes to homeschooling. That is one thing about the state of Illinois that's very rare. Is a good thing about the state of Illinois is their homeschooling laws and the freedoms that we have to homeschool in the state of Illinois. So that's it. Don't let anybody tell you anything else outside of that law, because that's the only thing that you have to do to homeschool in the state of Illinois. And you can get that information from hslda.org. You can get it from online. There's just several different sources out there that have that information out there. And we work really closely as PAACH with hslda.org also. And I will tell you guys a little bit about that organization later on. In the state of Illinois, homeschools operate as private schools. So basically you have a private school that you're opening when you start homeschooling. And that's how you are homeschooling in the state of Illinois. You're homeschooling under the umbrella of a private school. There is no paperwork to fill out. So if you are pulling your child out of the public school and homeschooling, don't let the school district tell you that you need to fill out this form in order to homeschool. That is not true. There's no form for you to fill out. Don't let the regional Board of Education tell you that. There is no form. Now they have a form out there that they try to get people to sign and try to get people to fill out, but it is not required by law in the state of Illinois. And in fact, we highly recommend that you do not fill out that form, just because it can create complications for homeschoolers later on down the road. With the government, you give them an inch and they want a mile, so to speak. There is a recommendation that we do recommend that if you are pulling your student out of the public school, we do recommend you send a withdrawal letter. And that withdrawal letter only needs to state that you are enrolling your student into a private education or a private school, and that you would like the records sent directly to you. That's all it takes. We definitely recommend that you send that certified mail return receipt, because just to have record that you did in fact send it. Most of the time, parents aren't given too much flack from the school district, but there are rare instances where school districts have tried to overreach. And if that's the case, you can contact me, you can contact PAACH, you can contact HSLDA, and we will definitely work with you guys on what to do next. Like I said, I was talking about HSLDA earlier. It stands for the Homeschool Legal Defense Association. They're basically lawyers for homeschoolers, and they help represent homeschoolers in different situations when they got involved about education. So I would definitely recommend to become part of HSLDA. We are members ourselves, and it's just, we've never had to use their services. So one of the services that they offer is that they will represent you for free if you ever have a situation where you need some representation and somebody's challenging you for homeschooling. So it's nice to have that backup, but there are other things that they do too that really helps the homeschooling community. They have resources on their website. They have a store. They have just lots of resources out there to help. They can help you with transcripts. They can help you with the diploma, just different things that they can help you with. So I highly recommend hslda.org. And again, you can find that on the website. So is there anybody here that is homeschooling high school or going to be homeschooling high school in the near future, like within the next couple of years? If so, you can either type in chat or you can unmute yourself and let me know. Or is everybody just under high school and below? All right, so it looks like everybody is under high school. Okay, yeah, Nicole says under high school. I can briefly talk about it because I don't know how close you guys are getting to high school. Because we also get a question of what records should you keep in your homeschooling journey? I'm saying Grace says elementary, great. All right. So what records you should keep? I always recommend loosely attendance. That can just be, whether it's a school paper book that you just write in each day that you attend, because in the state of Illinois, you are not required for a certain number of days either. That's another benefit that we don't have, like public schools. They are required to have so many days in school. We're not required that under private schools, which is nice. But I just recommend just to keep record of that so that you can show if somebody ever questions whether you're homeschooling, you can say, well, here's my proof. I have an attendance log. I also recommend maybe keeping some samples of the schoolwork that they completed, your student has completed that year, whether it be some lap books, some student books, maybe some worksheets. It doesn't have to be everything. Just to do just basically a small portfolio just to show that you are in fact, homeschooling. If you are going to be homeschooling high school, that does get a little bit more complicated because you do need to start creating transcripts. And I happen to have graduated too, and I am getting ready to graduate 2 more. So if you're getting to the point where you're homeschooling a high school and you want to talk about transcripts, give me a buzz. I would be happy to talk to you guys about that and show you. It's very easy to create transcripts and to be able to submit those to colleges. My oldest, she graduated from a 4-year private university, Olivet Nazarene, and they had no problem accepting my transcripts from her. So any other questions about record keeping or about the laws of Illinois? Because it's pretty basic and it's really nice that we live in that homeschooling freedom of the state of Illinois. Like I said, it's one of the very rare things that's good about the state of Illinois. And finally, finalizing talking about the legal aspect of homeschooling, I definitely recommend that you guys name your homeschool. We've named ours. Our homeschool is called Resurrection Waters. It's been that way from the very beginning. It's just nice to have ownership of your homeschool in your classroom. And like I said, and eventually if you do decide to homeschool high school, that name is going to be on your transcripts, which is nice too. But it's nice that the kids can, you can even get all wild if you wanted to create t-shirts or if you wanted to create IDs, student IDs or teacher IDs. Those are all great things to do with your name of your school or the name of your homeschool. So that talks about the legal aspects of homeschooling. And like I said, in the state of Illinois, it's pretty free. If you ever do run into a problem, definitely give us a buzz and we can reach out to HSLDA on your behalf, or we can definitely give you some guidance on steps to move forward. And like I said, it's very rare that a school district or the regional state board of education will get involved and ask for more information. But if it does occasionally happen, and we have had to say a few things. And most of the time when we say something, we say, okay, that's beyond your jurisdiction. You're asking for too much information. These are the only legal requirements in the state of Illinois. They tend to back off and it doesn't become a pressing issue. Another thing that I wanted to talk about with homeschooling, which I'm sure a lot of you guys are here tonight because of this, is learning styles. So I know that there are several different learning styles out there, and I'm going to kind of talk about a few of them and give you a brief overview of what those are like. And just to give you an idea of maybe looking in your children and seeing what learning styles you see there with your kids. It just makes homeschooling that much better when you can see their learning style. Or it might be, as a parent, you have a particular learning style that you lean towards, that you like to teach from. And then your children also have a learning style that they like to learn from. So it's kind of nice knowing what those are. And then you can mesh them together too. A lot of the learning styles can kind of weave with each other, which is kind of nice too. So we're going to talk about different learning styles. I'll give you guys a brief synopsis of each learning style, what that is. The first thing I would like to encourage everyone with is, if you guys are coming from the public school system, I would highly encourage you guys to de-school. Now, some of you may have heard that terminology, de-school. It's basically simply just being a family and learning to enjoy learning again. You don't necessarily have to get to the books right away. I definitely recommend like visits to the library and maybe have your kids tell you what they enjoy learning about or subjects that they're interested in, and going to the library and just picking out some books like that. Maybe finding some activities local or in the community that you can go to that would enhance what they're interested in. And outside time is very, very important when it comes to our kids. I definitely encourage having that outside time and just getting to gaming. Gaming is another thing. Playing games together. You're learning while you're playing a game. And that when you de-school, it helps put the pressure off of your kids and the pressure off of you. And you basically get to learn how to enjoy learning and enjoy the fact of learning again. And your kids get to enjoy learning again. And a lot of times the public school can kind of take that enjoyment away from our kids. So it's just important just to kind of transition so that you're not public schooling at home. And I'll kind of get into that a little bit, because a lot of homeschoolers make that mistake where they try to public school at home, because again, that's what we're used to, because a lot of us have come from a public school background. So that's the what is normal to us. And so that's what we try to mimic. I was guilty of that when I first started homeschooling. My husband came home to me when we did, because we were not originally planning on homeschooling our kids. And he came home to one day, and I was filling out the registration for the local public school for our oldest daughter. And he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I'm just registering our daughter for kindergarten." And he looked at me and he says, "Well, I thought we were going to homeschool." We had never had a conversation about it before until that moment. And I looked at him, I'm like, "Oh, we are." And so that's kind of how we started homeschooling. I told everybody, I'm taking it 1 year at a time. But I thought in my mind, oh, I've heard of Rebecca. I've had some experience with Rebecca. My mom had homeschooled myself for a year. I thought, oh, I'll just buy the box curriculum, because then I know that she gets everything that she needs, and we can just school at home. We can have our desk. We can have our posters on the wall. We can have, our designated time for this or for that, just like the school district does. And guys, that did not work. Probably after about 2 to 3 years, we were figuring that was not working for us. So in talking about learning styles, the first one I'm going to talk about is called schooling at home. And that's basically just mimicking public schooling. Basically just what I talked about, how you usually have a box set with all the subjects in it that you would need. And you basically just give the books to your children, and they sit them at their desk, and you have your posters on your wall, and you have 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock is math time, and 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock is history time. And you're just really scheduled and rigid. And that doesn't necessarily work for everybody. In fact, it works for very few people. I don't necessarily recommend that type of homeschooling, because you're basically just mimicking something that already is not really working in the public school system. So, and it's usually the hardest type of homeschooling to do, and it usually has the highest level of burnout also. As most always, buying a box curriculum set. Nothing against box curriculum. Sometimes there are kids that just love to use box curriculum like that, and you can still use box curriculum and not mimic a public school at home type atmosphere. The next type of learning style I'm going to talk about is called unschooling. And that is child-led schooling. Unschoolers learn from everyday life experiences, and they do not use school schedules or formal lessons. So an idea of unschooling would be a child, if she is fascinated, maybe she really likes astronomy, and she really likes looking through her telescope, and she's invested in looking at the planets. So that's how unschooling would work, is you would take what the child is invested in and loves and wants to learn about, and you would just expand on that, and you would give her opportunities that would help teach her and educate her in that degree. It's very laid back and is very much child-led. So whatever the child wants to learn about, that's how you're learning. I do have friends that do unschooling and they love it. And then some people try unschooling and they don't love it. They like schedules, they like formal lessons. So it's not for everybody, but it is for some people. And again, that's unschooling. The next method I'm going to talk about is Charlotte Mason. And that method has a core belief that children are not mere containers that are waiting to be filled with knowledge, but persons in their own right, deserving of respect. According to Charlotte Mason, children should be given time to play, create, and be involved in real life situations from which they can learn. Students of the Charlotte Mason method, they take nature walks, they visit art museums, and they learn geography, history, and literature from living books. And living books is the term that you're going to probably hear a lot as the Charlotte Mason type education. And that is just books that make the subjects come alive. That's what a living book is. And there are definitely, when we get to the end of this, I do have some resources for you guys and some curriculum suggestions, and I can give you some websites and things like that if that's something that you're interested in learning more about. The next learning style I'm going to talk about is Montessori. Montessori definitely is out there, not just homeschooling, it's also out there with, they have their own private education and they have their own private schools. Montessori emphasizes errorless learning. It's where the children learn at their own pace and in a way that develop their full potential. The Montessori homeschool approach emphasizes beauty and quality and avoids things that are confusing or cluttered. Wooden tools are preferred over plastic tools, and learning materials are kept well organized and ready to use. So an example of Montessori, the best example that I can give you is my son has, he's 16 months old, and he has these stacking blocks that are just colorful wooden blocks that are in shapes. He has squares, he has circles, and then I think he has like a geometric octagon type shape one. That's an example of Montessori learning. It's wooden, it's colorful, it's definitely nature-based. So that's the Montessori. And a lot of these learning styles you can research online too, and there's so much information out there that you guys can see with I'm just kind of giving a brief overview of it just to give you guys some ideas of what kind of learning styles are out there to see if something resonates with your soul. The next learning style we're going to talk about is the unit study approach. It incorporates the basic subjects into a thematic unit, and any unit can cover reading, writing, math, science, social studies, and fine arts. Lessons are adaptable to different skill levels, so you can teach multiple ages and multiple grades if you use the unit study approach. And you can also teach various learning styles also using the unit study approach, and it also covers multiple intelligences too. So an example of a unit study is, I can go back to the astronomy example. So if it's a unit study based approach that you want to do, you would start your unit study on astronomy, and you would be learning, maybe you would be learning the planets. And so you would possibly, for math, you would be counting the planets, and maybe for each planet, you're going to count how many moons each planet has, or you're going to count the rings that it has. So that would be your math. And you can introduce skip counting that way. And then, so you got your science covered with astronomy. Writing, you possibly do copy work with writing. So maybe you might find a scripture verse, or you might find a phrase that talks about the planets that the children are just practicing writing. It covers reading, so you'd get a couple of astronomy books, and so you would cover the reading, and you could get them at the child's level so that the child could start reading too with that. So that's an example of unit study. I love the unit study approach. I do a little bit of unit study in my homeschooling journey, and my homeschooling journey has kind of changed over times too. And I've done different things. Like my oldest four, I've definitely homeschooled them differently than what I'm doing with my 8-year-old right now. And then the 16-month-old baby, we're doing more play-based stuff with the baby. The next learning style I'm going to talk about is eclectic. That's what I label myself as an eclectic homeschooler. Basically, eclectic homeschooling uses a little bit of this and a little bit of that. They might use workbooks for math, reading, and spelling, and then they're going to take an unschooling approach to the other subjects. For the family who practices relaxed or eclectic homeschooling, mornings are often used for more formal work, like maybe the math and the language arts. And then the afternoons are used for hobbies and other special projects. So eclectic homeschoolers also, they don't usually focus on one particular publisher. They may use multiple publishers. They may use multiple publishers for different kids. The same kid may not use the same publisher for the same subject. So that's what an eclectic, they do. They pull this, they pull that, and they find stuff that works for each child and for each grade level. And so that's what eclectic homeschooling is. I love eclectic homeschooling. That's what I became after we had the disastrous Becca start. We did a Becca, full-blown Becca for 3 years from until she was in 3rd grade. And if you know anything about a Becca curriculum, it starts to get more detailed, harder the higher level you go up, and you start requiring more workbooks. for different subjects. And so it became a lot for us. And I was only homeschooling her at the time. Her sister wasn't quite ready to homeschool yet. And so we decided that, you know, Abeka wasn't working for us, but I liked some of the program. And so I kept Abeka for a math and language arts and spelling and science. And I branched out and did mysteries of history for history. And I loved that. And that was the 3rd grade year. And then the 4th grade year, I decided, you know what, I don't like Abeka science very well. So I started looking for other options for science for my kids. And we discovered Apologia. And we loved Apologia. We also have used master books in the past too. We love master books also. So that gives you an example of an eclectic homeschooler. They just kind of pick and choose their publishers of what works for each child for per subject. So again, you may not have, like if you have 3 children, they may not have the same publisher for math. Maybe teaching textbooks works for one child, but Matthew C works for the other child. So that's what eclectic homeschooling is. The next learning style we're going to talk about is classical, and that has existed since the Middle Ages. And the goal is to teach people how to learn for themselves in the classical learning style approach. They cover the 5 tools of learning that's known as trivium, reason, record, research, relate, and rhetoric. An example of classical learning would be classical conversations. Classical conversations is a co-op based group, and they have, I think they're up to 4 in the area now. And so they do a lot of classical approach. They cover Latin, and they can do a lot of that rhetoric type learning. So that's the classical approach. You will have some curriculum out there that has a classical feel to it, but may not be used by classical conversations, so to say. So that gives you some examples. And then the last one I want to cover is the Waldorf method, the learning style, and it's based on the work of Rudolf Steiner. And it stresses the importance of educating the whole child, which would be body, mind, and spirit. In the early grades, there is an emphasis on arts and crafts, music and movement, and nature. That would be like kindergarten through 3rd grade. Older children are tripping over my words here, are taught to develop self-awareness and how to reason things out for themselves. Children in a Waldorf homeschool do not use standard textbooks. They're usually instead creating their own books. So that gives you a little bit of an example of Waldorf learning style. And again, all these ones that I covered, you can do a quick Google search and find out more information about that learning style and see if it might fit your family or your child. It's just, I was just trying to do a basic basic understanding of each learning style to kind of give you guys some ideas of what's out there. There are more learning styles out there. I just kind of covered the top learning styles that are out there. But so if none of those resonate with you or with your homeschooling, you can also Google homeschool learning styles, and you can see what else is out there and see what might actually work for your family. So moving on, and again, I definitely want to leave time at the end here to for questions and answers, so that, because I'm sure I'm giving you guys a lot of information and probably have created more questions for you guys than the one that you came tonight here with. So we covered the legal aspect of homeschooling. We covered learning styles and resources and our mission statement. I do want to touch a little bit on curriculum. I'm not going to cover all the curriculum that I have listed. Again, that document, I highly encourage you guys to download it if you have not downloaded it already, because I have a lot of curriculum that's listed there to give you guys a jumping off point of where to look for curriculum and what curriculum options are out there. But I don't want you guys to get overwhelmed either. The thing about homeschooling is I would encourage you to try something. It doesn't hurt to try it. And if it doesn't work for your family, then you can always put it aside. And it's not a failed attempt. It's something that you learned from. It's something that you tried and learned and realized it did not work for your family. But there's always a learning point, and there's definitely an amount of grace to apply to a homeschooling mom, because there are times that I felt as a failure as a homeschooling mom. I know that if you talk to any homeschooling mom, they're going to tell you there are times that you feel like you're a failure, but you're not failing your children. You love your children. And if you're actively homeschooling them, that is the biggest thing, is that you are showing them that you're loving them, and you're showing them that you care about them, and you're not failing them, and you're doing things together, and you're doing life together. Another thing, reason why we focus on family discipleship, is we like to live our life together as our family does. And that's our homeschooling journey, is living our life together. So a lot of things that we are doing during as life is learning opportunities and schooling opportunities that may necessarily be not classified as homeschooling or schooling our kids or educating our kids, but it's a process of learning. It's character development. It's learning to deal with sibling rivalry, or learning to get along with each other. So there's just so many things that comes into the homeschooling umbrella that you're learning as a homeschooling family. So I kind of got off a little tangent there, but I definitely don't want to overwhelm you guys. So when you guys see this list of curriculum, just look at it as a suggested guideline of places to start. Don't think that you have to try everything. Don't think that, this is the Bible when it comes to curriculum, because there's stuff on here that's not on here that I didn't have time to put on here that you might find that works better for your family. So I'm just going to kind of briefly go over some things. I'll go over some terms and then kind of give you some examples of what each curriculum term is. The first one I have is the traditional curriculum. And again, that's usually the boxed program. You're going to find like a Becca, Christian Line, ACE, Accelerated Christian Education, Christian Liberty Press. Those are some examples of the box curriculum. And what a box curriculum is basically you're buying all your subjects from one publisher, and they done all the work for you, where they put all the, your math, your language, your science, your history, your writing, your reading, they put it all together in a box, so to speak, maybe not necessarily a physical box, but they grouped it all together, and they're selling it as a subject or as a year. So you're buying 3rd grade from them, or you're buying 5th grade for them, or you're buying 2nd grade from them. So that's an example of box curriculum. It's a great place to start if you're nervous about homeschooling, but also definitely give yourself some grace if you're using a box curriculum set, because you don't have to do everything that's in that, because it can be overwhelming to do it all. And know that sometimes things don't work, and it's okay to change, even if it's mid-year in your homeschooling journey. It's still okay to change. I know a few years back, I had purchased a history curriculum from the convention, and I was so excited about using this history curriculum. About, oh, this is what we need. We need to change things up. And so we started it the following year. And if I wasn't crying, one of my kids were crying. It was that bad. And about 2 months into the program, I thought, why am I continuing to do this? This is not fun for us. It's not enjoyable. We're not really learning much in the curriculum. We're just learning that we don't like the curriculum. And so I just tossed it to the side, and we went back to something else, and we were able to change them. And it didn't disrupt my kids' education at all. And so I definitely recommend, if you guys find something that's not working for your family, give yourself permission to toss it and to find something else. There are curriculum that are accredited programs, and I want to put like a little star here as far as accredited programs. And you're going to have things like Becca Academy, Alpha Omega, American School. If you're looking for an accredited program, and the only reason why you're looking for an accredited program is because you were told you need an accredited program, please don't get an accredited program. There is a lot of hype to accredited programs, and really the only thing that they have going for them is that they have a standard that they have to live up to and meet. And it's not necessarily ideal for homeschoolers. If you're trying to put your child back into public school, or you're trying to graduate your child and take them to a college, accredited programs do not matter. And in fact, you'll find a lot of public high schools may not be accredited. So if it's accreditation that you're looking for, it's not as big of a deal as you might think it is. And I would definitely recommend steering away from accreditation if the only reason why you're doing it is because you were told and you want an accredited program, because there's not really much benefit to an accredited program. Public schools can choose to accept credits or decline credits. It's all completely on the public school. And so if you're trying to think, oh, well, I'm going to get a accredited program in case my child goes back to public school, it's not necessarily a guarantee that the public school will accept that program, even if it is accredited. For colleges, you don't need accreditation. You putting your stamp of approval on their transcripts is enough. And because you're operating as a private school, so you don't need accreditation for colleges. And so don't let any colleges tell you, well, your program isn't accredited, so we cannot accept it. That's not true. And it's not legal. And then again, I would tell you to contact HSLDA so that they can fight for you on your behalf, because it's not right what they would be doing. I kind of listed a few accredited programs. There are more out there. They're usually, most of the time, they're an online program. Sometimes they're not necessarily online. You're sending the work in for the schools to be to grade and stuff like that. There's Charlotte Mason. We kind of covered that learning style a little bit. There are curriculums that are Charlotte Mason approached. Ambleside Online, Beautiful Feet, 5 in a Row. If you got elementary kids or younger, kindergarten, first, second grade, I highly recommend 5 in a Row. I did that with my 8-year-old and we loved it. It is a unit study based approach. You're basically just reading a children's book. For an example, the first book that we read was Ping, and you're learning all of your core subjects from that book. So we covered math, we covered geography, we covered science, we covered history, we covered language arts. Like to this day, my daughter can tell you what an onomatopoeia is. And I didn't know what an onomatopoeia is when I was teaching until I learned it. So, and she was like in kindergarten, she was like, oh, that's an onomatopoeia. So in language arts. So it's a great, great program. I highly recommend. We loved it. That's an example of Charlotte Mason. Again, I have more than what is listed here. To go, Masterbooks is another Charlotte Mason approach that we've used, simply Charlotte Mason. There's plenty on here for you guys to look through just to see some ideas of where to start. We got classical education curriculum. That's, classical conversations, Memorial Press, Bright Ideas Press, Veritas Press. A lot of times too, you'll see with curriculum that it kind of is interwoven to different types of styles. So like something that is classical may also fall under the Charlotte Mason approach, or it may fall under the distance learning or the free option. So there's definitely some interwoven going on with curriculum. There's also distance learning style. That's again going to be an online type program. You got Becca Distance Learning, Essentials in Writing, Apologia Online, Alpha Omega. It used to be Switch on Schoolhouse. Now it's Monarch because it's online. They renamed it. So there's definitely some different options out there for online. The thing I would highly encourage you about is if you do choose an online type program to start with your kids, I would definitely recommend that not everything that you do is online, because kids can really get burned out with screen time. So that's just my 2 cents about online learning and the online options. There's free options out there. You got Easy Peasy, Homeschool Adventure, Homeschool Share, Little House Kindergarten. Again, they're all listed under that document that I sent out. With the free options out there, you definitely have to keep in mind that they may just be starting off points, that you may need to purchase things to make them more of a in-depth study on some things. We did do Easy Peasy, me and my daughter, my 8-year-old daughter, for her kindergarten year. And again, I was like, it's kindergarten, we're not going to mess things up. And a lot of it was hands-on that we did with her. So I used it as a tool. Was not heavily focused on Easy Peasy. Again, then you got the unit study types. 5 in a Row is a unit study. Gather Round is a unit study curriculum. My Father's World is unit study. So there's lots of different curriculum options out here. Again, don't get overwhelmed by all the different options. Just do some research and just do some things test some things out. Some of these programs have samples that you can get. Some of these programs has online testing that you can do for your kids. There's also other options out there that don't necessarily fall under a different or a curriculum type. And things like All About Learning Press, they cover reading and writing and spelling. Answers in Genesis, Life of Fred covers math. Rosetta Stone They cover foreign language. Math UC I mentioned earlier, they have Math UC and Spelling UC. They cover math and spelling. Teaching textbooks covers math. So there's definitely plenty of options out there. The thing that you're going to find with homeschooling is maybe there might be too many options out there and it can get a little overwhelming. So don't get overwhelmed. Just try a little bit here and there and find out what works for your family. And then give yourself some grace if something's not working for your family, that you have permission to toss it aside and find something else. And I definitely recommend our curriculum show and tell, usually in February that we have it. And you can go to there. And like I said, you can actually browse physical books and see what these books look like. You can talk to homeschooling moms that have used this material, that material before, so you know how it works, so you can see what's good for your family too. So maybe perhaps you start in the next month or so of curriculum shopping and you purchase some things and you start it off and you decide, come December, January, oh, this isn't really working for our family. Pop on over to our curriculum show and tell in February and look and see what's available out there. So it's just a nice thing to be able to look at the material without the risk of purchasing first. Because I know I have had that buyer's remorse before where I bought something and then was feeling guilty because I didn't use it or it didn't work for our family. I would also do a caveat here to also give you guys permission that it's okay if you spend some money on something. It's a learning process and it's not the end of the world, and we can always find something that does work for our children. So that talks a little bit about all the different curriculum. Like I said, I didn't go over all the curriculum that I have listed in that document because there's so much out there, but that gives you guys a jumping off point on where to start your curriculum search at if you need help starting. The last thing I kind of want to talk about, or the last two things I kind of want to talk about, is activities. And then I want to give you guys some connections of some local homeschool moms that are willing to, step up with you side by side and help you out. If you have any questions or if you want to meet in person, I do have a list of moms that are willing to do that. Activities. So for our family, we wanted to focus on character and family building. So that's where our activities were as a homeschooling. We were not into the sports because we looked at sports and it tended to separate our family or separated us from church. And we didn't want those options for our family, so we just didn't do sports. But there are sports out there, so if your kids do like sports, they can still be involved with sports if they're homeschooling. I listed several options there under activities. You got local clubs that they can go through. The Christian Center every summer does soccer, and I believe they do basketball maybe, or volleyball. There's another one that they do. No, I'm not sure, but they do a couple different sports. The Christian Center does. There's fitness centers that offer sports. I know Pierce and Chillicothe, they do volleyball, soccer, and basketball. The park districts. I know Peoria Park District offers different sporting leagues, and I'm sure some of the other park districts in the area also do that. And then schools, I have listed as an option here too. That differentiates between school district. So depending on what school district you're in, depends on what they require from you as a homeschooling mom and then student to be able to participate in their sports. It could be they require nothing, and they just want your child to participate. It could be that they require your child to take a class or two or to be enrolled part-time, or maybe to the extreme of full-time. They may require that too. It just depends on the school district, and it's totally up to the school district on how that is run. I do want to say though that there has been some changes on the high school level. This past year, the IHSA has come out with a statement and some rules in regards to homeschooling students in high school sports, which makes it a little bit more difficult. I think that we're now requiring all schools to require part-time, if I remember right. But so that's a little bit different with the high school level, but it is an option out there. And like I said, it just depends on the school district and just connecting with the school district on what they would require from you. Co-ops is another option for activities and socialization for your kids. I know of several co-ops in the area. And if you want any contact information from these, just let me know and I can let you know the contact. There's PCA co-op, there's Tri-County, that means in Morton. 24/7, which is Bethany Community, Washington, meets out there. There's the Dunlap Cedar Hill Baptist Church, Co-op, and then there's a new one starting in Marshall County called United Homeschoolers that I know of that's meeting regularly. So that's a list of co-ops I personally know about, but I'm sure that there's others out there too. And if one of those don't meet your need and you're still looking for a co-op, you can always jump on one of the homeschooling Facebook pages and ask, and you're probably to get several suggestions from people there. Choirs, my family participates in Hosanna Homeschool Choir. They meet on Thursdays at Woodland Baptist Church. That's the choir that we participate in, but there's also PCA Co-op also has a choir part of their co-op, and you can participate in the choir only. You don't have to necessarily participate in the co-op to be part of the choir. And then the Peoria Civic Chorale has a children's chorus choir that they have too. Your student can participate in. Music, if you have a child that's interested in music, Concordia Lutheran, the private school here in Peoria, they allow students to participate in their orchestra and their band. Sometimes you also might find the school district is willing to let your child participate in their band. Kidder Music does has some groups that they have meets out of their store, and then there's also private lessons. And there's so many people out there that are giving private lessons for any type of music. Again, you can hop on the Facebook pages and ask, hey, does anybody know of a drum teacher or a guitar teacher or a piano teacher? And I'm sure you'll get lots of answers on that forefront. Other activities, you got, I know there's a local recess group. There is a local PE group. There's also a local forest group that meets. Libraries tend to have activities for kids, whether they're homeschool specific or just kids in general. There's some art companies in the area that do art lessons. And then I know there's a couple of homeschool robotics teams that meets. And then there's a couple of gaming groups too that meet too also. And then, you know, if something doesn't necessarily meet your guys' cup of tea, you can always create your own and just advertise it, because I guarantee you probably have a couple families that love that idea and want to join with you on that. So like I said, there is lots of different options out there for activities. I can connect you with some. If you have specific questions on certain activities, I can find those resources for you. The final thing that I have there in that new to homeschooling document that I just downloaded for you guys to download, or uploaded for you guys to download, is a list of contacts. I believe there are 5 ladies on there. I think we got myself, Jessica Gonzalez, Nicole Brockett, Jordan Nally, and Sherry Ryken are ladies that are from this area. I have listed on there where they're from, and they got their contact information out there, and they're aware that I'm giving you guys their information, and they said they're more than willing to connect with new homeschoolers and encourage them and answer their questions or meet up with them if they would prefer. So that's kind of everything that I had prepared tonight for everyone to kind of talk about and give you guys a little bit of an overview of homeschooling and kind of answer you guys' fears and questions. I guess at this time, I'm going to turn off the video recording so that we can stop that.